On behalf of the Master Plan Committee, I want to thank you for coming up on this very docile spring day. I've told plenty of people that we're not going to let a little bit of rain interfere with planning for the town of Plymouth. Over the past year, Stantec has been busy learning about Plymouth. They've been gathering data about every aspect of our community. They have been interviewing staff and stakeholders, and most importantly, they've been hearing from you, the residents of Plymouth. The ultimate goal of all of this work is to create a new community master plan that reflects the wishes of the residents and provides town government with specific, measurable goals to help achieve that vision. And that's what we're here tonight to do. Stantec has taken all of that information that they've been gathering, and they've done a draft of some of those goals, some of those visions, and some of those plans for your input. And again, that's what this is all about. This is all about your input into what our community is going to look like and how we're going to achieve that. The feedback that you provide tonight will start the formal drafting process for the actual community master plan. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Phil Chafing of Stantec.
Thank you very much, Steve. Good evening, everyone. I'll try to talk loud over the pounding rain. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. If I had a gold star to give each and every one of you for your dedication for coming out here, I would. I don't, so I've got some chips and granola bars to offer you instead. So my name is Phil Chafing. I'm a senior associate at Stantec and the project manager for our team, who, as Steve said, has been doing a lot of work over the past year, listening to all of you and many others, both in person and online. And what we have tonight is our first kind of attempt at reflecting back what we've heard in terms of a vision and a goals and a set of strategies for the future of Plymouth. So hearing from you starting tonight and over the next several weeks online from as many people as we can is just a really important message that I want to make sure all of you can share with your neighbors and friends as well. So I have a brief presentation really just to kind of orient you to what's in the room here and how we're asking for your feedback tonight. But before I get started, I want to just briefly recap where we are in the process. And before I get started, can I just get a quick show of hands? Is this anyone's first meeting for the master plan? Anybody who's never been to a meeting before? Fantastic, several hands going up, great. Thank you very much for coming out for the first time, and thank all of the rest of you for coming back. We really appreciate that. So, as Steve had said, we've been at work for a while now in the midst of this 5-phase process here. And what we've done so far has really been listening. Both in person and online, having kind of open-ended discussions about what people want to see the future of Plymouth look like. And that has been so helpful for us as we, over the last couple of months then, have been developing the material that you see around you tonight and that we'll briefly run through here. And so this is kind of an interim checkpoint in the process, and getting feedback from the community over the next several weeks is critically important so that over the summer and into the fall then, we can revise this material based on that feedback to then put together the draft plan. And so we'll be coming back again in the fall to present that for one more opportunity for public input. So to start off with, just briefly recapping what we've heard so far and what we've done so far. We started off with our visioning forum last June in the same space on a much sunnier, nicer day than today. We had 3 topic workshops this fall, we were with the Master Plan Committee as they held 7 listening sessions and cross town over 2.5 months this fall and winter. And there's been an online engagement component as well, project website surveys and interactive maps. So we've gotten a lot of feedback so far. That's been really encouraging, and we always want to hear from more people. So hopefully over the next couple of weeks we can continue to hear both new and old voices in the process. What we heard from the visioning survey, we heard a lot of things. These were 2 of the questions we asked. And hopefully as you see the vision and the goals tonight and the strategies, you'll see a lot of these themes reflected in that. Particularly that category of things to change or improve. Those were, challenges we heard from people, things they'd like to see be a little different. So the strategies are trying to address that. The interactive map, which was available online, gave us some very place-specific recommendations, but a lot of the same themes were coming through. Housing affordability, in this case of the map, very specific intersection improvements to make places safer both for drivers, but also pedestrians and bicyclists, and other themes there. So that all fed into the topic workshops this fall. Themes that we heard there, the first couple there, focusing development in already developed places and encouraging a greater mix of land uses. Those 2 things will hopefully, through some of our strategies here, help to accomplish the next 2, which is about preserving open space where we can, and making sure that we're thinking about sustainability and resilience as the town continues to change. So those were just some of the themes we heard from everybody who participated in those workshops. And then the listening sessions with the Master Plan Committee were just really, I think, really interesting, really great informal opportunities to hear from people both about their neighborhood, right where they live, as well as their thoughts on other parts of the town. And so that was a really important part of the process for us. And again, I think what is helpful, while it's a little bit repetitive here, helpful that we're hearing a lot of the same themes of affordability and natural resource protection and aquifer protection and transportation, and not just driving, but walking and bicycling as well. So all of this and much more feedback fed into the draft vision and goals, which are over here at station number 1 near where you walked in. And so to orient you a little bit, the vision, goals, and strategies, that's kind of the structure of the master plan. The vision is the high level, very broad general statement that really sets the overall direction. It's supported then by a series of goals, and we have 9 draft goals, which are in the back of the room here, that provide a little bit more detail and hit on a lot of the topics that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts requires the master plan to address. And then the strategies are the more detailed action steps of how to help accomplish those goals. So that's kind of the structure of the plan that we're working in. And so the vision statement, this is again the overall statement. I'll read just this first bold point here, that Plymouth will enhance its quality of life for all generations as a welcoming, resilient, and affordable community. And then it goes on, and you can read more about that at station 1 there. So this vision statement, again, sets kind of the broad tone. And one of the pieces of this that I wanted to highlight is affordable community there, because community affordability is something that we didn't necessarily hear that term, but people were talking about affordability in a lot of different ways in almost every meeting, survey, listening session we went to. Housing affordability was obviously a big one, but people were also thinking about the jobs and the wage levels that are available here. They were thinking about the cost of transportation and wanting to have the option to walk and bike, short distances here. It's also, at a town level, municipal budget and fiscal management and everything. So that is a theme, is something that kind of informs the goals and the strategies. So we have 9 draft goals, and as I said, those are available in the posters in the back of the room here. And each of these addresses one of the themes that we heard from the community engagement, as well as the topics that we want to make sure the master plan is addressing. So the first one is to explore a variety of housing types that meet the diverse and changing needs of our multi-generational community. So recognizing that as people go through life, they're looking for different types of housing at different points and wanting to make sure that as many different types of housing are being built here in Plymouth as possible so that people who want to stay here throughout their life have that option and that those options are affordable to be able to do that. So we have a whole set of strategies about that. The second goal, and I should say second goal only kind of in the order we're doing it. These are not in like priority order or anything. We just had to list them in some order. So the second goal is about preserving and protecting our natural resources. Again, a topic that a lot of people were coming back to in a lot of the events that we went to, whether that is the aquifer and wetlands or inland ponds or coastal water resources, as well as natural habitat, forests, things like that. So there's a whole set of strategies to help accomplish that goal. The third goal is to maintain the historic and cultural character of Plymouth. People, obviously appreciate the rich history that distinguishes Plymouth, even in New England, which is a place rich in history, but Plymouth really has a particular piece of that. But also a lot of interest about promoting arts and culture and using arts and culture to help communicate some of that history. Another goal then about expanding and diversifying the economy. This goes back to the types of jobs that are here, the types of businesses that are here, the wage levels and the skill levels that are required to do that. Thinking not just from an economic development perspective, but also the municipal tax base in that perspective as well. The next goal is about improving connectivity for all modes of transportation, and so this goes back to it's not just driving, but it's also bicycling and walking. It's thinking about specific intersections, but also filling in gaps in between trail networks and things like that. The sixth goal is about maintaining and improving infrastructure, and so that is local roadways, water and sewer infrastructure where that exists, recreation assets, all of that. Knowing that all of these things cost money, are an important part of the town's capital improvement budget, and are part of the quality of life here. So making sure that we always keep that in mind and how we're improving those and keeping up with maintenance and improvements. Related to that then is advancing Plymouth's long-term fiscal sustainability. So we know, households have budgets, towns have budgets too. They're expected to provide services that cost money. They have to bring in revenue through primarily property taxes here in Plymouth. And so how do decisions about land use and growth and development then influence the tax base, which influences the budget and the services that can be provided? So making sure we keep that connection in mind as well. Number 8 here, integrating sustainability and resiliency into all aspects of town planning. So a lot of people hear resiliency, sustainability, think environmental. It's certainly that. But it is also fiscal resiliency and social resiliency, having community gathering places where neighbors can come together, where people who are living alone have a chance to connect with other people for that social component, which I think we realize has become even more important post-COVID. So thinking about all the different angles of that. And then finally, but in some ways a really critical one, to maintain the master plan as a living document. The town's current master plan is 20 years old at this point, and so we want to make sure that this plan gets revisited at regular intervals, that it is a living document that can respond to changes that we can't anticipate right now. This is the last section here, talking about these few posters over here. Another important part of the master plan is thinking about future land use. For the most part, most of Plymouth's future land use is going to look a lot like the current land use today. But we know that there are places that will change over time. A lot of that's in response to market and demographic drivers. And so the first thing we did was try to broadly categorize the town into 4 different types of places to strengthen, transform, enhance, and preserve. And we developed this sort of map or diagram that puts those out. And so over here, we're curious to kind of get your feedback on that. You'll see that most of the town falls into either the enhanced category, which are smaller quality of life improvements in a lot of in neighborhoods, for example, or to preserve the open spaces. The area to strengthen are in a lot of the village centers, places that are good, serving a purpose now, but there can be improvements there to make them even better. And then just a few places we've identified as transformed, which could be potentially larger changes along the waterfront in Cordage Park, potentially Holtec, which is going through a whole separate planning process. So you can let us know what you think about that. And also we identified two types of village centers, the traditional village centers, the 5 that have been established here for decades now, but then a potential new designation for rural centers, places that provide a variety of housing types, a few services and amenities, but you're not necessarily going to be able to get everything you need there. And the important distinction, we call them rural villages because they don't have the same level of public infrastructure as the 5 village centers. So an important distinction there. And then the next thing we did here was to look at a couple representative sites in Plymouth, sites that are examples of many other types of sites here. One type is underused or vacant commercial and retail areas, either places that today you can think of look a little forlorn or rough around the edges, or that over the next 10 years may become that way as markets and demographics change. So thinking about using this scenario planning exercise to illustrate the potential impact of different policy choices. And then the second representative type is undeveloped land, mostly either in or near village centers, mostly in the southern part of Plymouth, and thinking about the future there, knowing that there is going to continue to be pressure to develop some of these places. We know there's also a strong interest in preservation and recreation and conservation, so trying to illustrate some potential impacts of those. It's mentioned on the boards, and I will say it here because it's worth saying, is that these scenarios are just purely representative kind of explorations. They're not design proposals or redevelopment proposals, anything like that. We just wanted to have concrete places here to illustrate these potential impacts. And then finally, what's next? So, as I said, we're using this event tonight to kick off a round of public engagement to let us know what you think about the vision, goals, and strategies. The online survey that will be up on the project website starting tomorrow, I would encourage all of you to please send that to your neighbors, your friends. The town will be promoting that, but that's an important opportunity for as many people as we can get to weigh in on these same things. And as a little enticement, for people who complete the survey online and for all of you who provided your email address when you signed in, at the end of this, probably towards late June, early July, we'll have a drawing for one $50 gift certificate to Plymouth General Store downtown, just as a way to encourage people and to thank them for the time that you're spending tonight or online with the survey. After we complete this round of public feedback, then our team is going to process all of that, revisit all of the goals and the strategies to revise and update those. We will put together a draft of the future land use map, and then we'll come back, as I said, in the fall to present the draft plan at another open house event similar to this. And then the plan adoption process will start probably late this year over the winter. Just a plug again for the project website. You can get to it through the Town of Plymouth's website. There's also a QR code and a short link there that you can follow as well. So with that, I'm going to get to the most important part of tonight, which is me being quiet and all of you talking to us. So now we're going to break out to just kind of an open house format. You can visit these posters in any order you want. You can look at every single one. You can just visit a couple that you're most interested in. And again, just to orient you, we have our vision and goals station over here, asking you what you think about the vision, asking you to identify the 3 goals that you think are most important for the future of Plymouth in the next 10 years. Because one important part and one challenge of this master plan is there are a lot of things that you as a community and the town wants to be able to do. And we can do a lot of things, but we can't do everything. So we have to prioritize. We have to make decisions between do we do this or do we do that? Because going back to that budget, There's only so much money to go around. So keeping that in mind, that's why we're asking you to kind of think about the priorities and the goals. Then at the strategy, sort of a similar thing. There's a number of strategies supporting each of the goals. We want your feedback on what you think are the 3 most important strategies to help accomplish those goals. And then if we miss something or you have another idea, there's a spot to put sticky notes to write your comments. I'm going to say this later, but it's important to please write down all of your feedback. Even if you talk to one of our team members, write it down, put it on the poster, because that's a written record of your feedback, okay? So we would really encourage that. And then over here, the future land use planning station, that is the place types and the scenarios for feedback, asking you kind of which of the scenario options do you prefer, how well do you think that diagram reflects what you think the future of Plymouth should look like. So again, as I said, please write everything down, leave it here, that way we have a record of everything. We will summarize everything we hear tonight. We will summarize the online survey once that closes, and that will be reported back on the website, and that'll be the basis that we use to kind of revisit and refine the goals and strategies. So with that, I want to thank you all very much for your time. We will have team members around each of the posters, or a few of us will be floating between several posters, but we've got our name tags on, so if you have a question about how to provide feedback, if you want to talk to us about anything you see, let us know. We would love to hear from you. And again, just thank you so much for your time and for coming out tonight. We really appreciate it. So we will see you at the posters. Thank you.